Hello everyone, it's Frank over here at Country Classics and Off-Road in Midlothian, Texas. Today I'm working on an International Scout that has an air conditioning issue. The clutch was locking up on the owner and the vehicle wasn't cooling the way it's supposed to. So I thought I'd go over a couple little things about air conditioning units that people don't know, for you do-it-yourselfers especially, or if you're just curious about your vehicle. This vehicle's special. The AC unit in it is meal pieced together. Nothing is original other than what's called the evaporator. The main parts that you run across are the condenser, which is what's up by your radiator, the compressor, which is what the engine turns, that compresses the fluid, or really the gas in this situation. Also, you have the evaporator and all of your lines, and you either have an orifice tube, you have some type of valve that controls pressures and flow of the coolant. So on this one in particular, originally when I put gauges on it, I had a low side and a high side as well. But what I discovered pretty quickly is that the compressor was not doing anything really. It was just the pressures were staying the same flat on both sides. So we put a new compressor on it, and guess what? I found out that the condenser up front actually had caused enough problems with clogs that it actually damaged the compressor. So as soon as I put the new compressor on, and I started to look at the gauges, I immediately noticed that on the low side, it would pull a negative vacuum. If you're running an engine or you're running a compressor and you get a negative reading on the low side and a regular or high reading on the high side, you have a clog for sure. There's some kind of blockage in the system. So I recognized that immediately, shut it off, and decided to start poking around. But eventually, I got it running again, and I want to show you one way you can try to find a clog, because hey, we don't have x-ray vision. We can't see into the compressor, we can't see into the condenser or the evaporator. How are we supposed to know where the clog is? Some people will tell you just flush the system. Well, I'm here to tell you that that doesn't work, and if it does work for you, just consider yourself extremely lucky. You can actually cause more damage doing that. I don't have a problem with flushing. Flushing's okay. It has a time and place, especially if you have a bad compressor and you're afraid pieces got into your system. Flush it, that's great. But do not rely just on that to fix clogs. So what I did is, on the condenser here, what you can do is you can take, what I like to use is an infrared thermometer, and of course the one I'm trying to show you just fell apart, so that looks really great on video. But this is a cheap one you can buy for, man, I want to say like 40 bucks. I have a really good one. It's got a laser on it. Those are the best, just because you know exactly where you're looking. But what you can do on your condenser is go to your in port. You're always going to have a higher temperature here than on the out port, because the idea behind the condenser is that it cools your system, or it cools the coolant down before it goes back into the compressor. So what you'll do to look for inconsistencies is every couple inches, check your temperature. And so like this one was 99 in one spot, 103 in another. Well, that's 4 degrees difference. That's good. What you're looking for is if you're getting a reading here, and then right next to it, an inch over, a couple inches over, you're getting a reading, and it's like 40, 50 degrees difference. That's not good. Check it all over. You can run it all the way across and just watch the gauge, go up and down. It's up to you how you want to do it. But I always just kind of start checking spots, because if you have one clog, you most likely have several. What I found on this one, there were some spots where there was almost a 60-degree difference was indicative of it being clogged. So I went ahead and changed it, and then I also changed one of the valves that's next to the evaporator, which is underneath the dash. And once I got that done, started her up. After pulling a vacuum, of course, always pull a vacuum. I've heard people say, well, I've charged this, do-it-yourselfers, I've charged the system before without pulling a vacuum, and it cooled just fine. It actually cooled the way it's supposed to. And you know what? You can do that, and you might be right. Where you run into issues is if you live in a climate where it's high humidity, probably it won't work as good. But even if it does work, I want to tell y'all what you're doing to your air conditioning system. You're introducing acid into your air conditioning system. The reason is what you're doing when you pull a vacuum is you pull a vacuum and it literally boils the inside of the system. And what I mean is if you have condensation, water inside the system, it actually boils that stuff out, sucks it out into the pump that you're using to pull. I like to get at least 30 Hg, which is a vacuum pressure, and it just burns it all out, and it's less to worry about. If you charge it up and there is some water or some type of vapor in there, it will eat your system up from the inside out. It might last a year, it might last 5 years. My dad swears that he had one that he pulled no vacuum on and it lasted about 7 years. So it's possible. Stranger things have happened. But I've also heard stories about Bigfoot and other things that really don't exist. So I kind of wonder, the person who smokes their whole life and never gets cancer, you hear those stories, okay. Well, I mean, it's fine. You take a chance, but I'm just telling y'all, even if you're a do-it-yourselfer, you don't have to have a high-grade pump. You can go to Harbor Freight and get the cheap little air pump and put it on there. Maybe you won't pull 30 Hg. Maybe you only get 25 out of it. But you know what? 25 is better than 0 or positive pressure. So at least give it a try. I understand if you don't have a lot of money, you're just trying to make things happen. I got it. Been there, brother. I've pulled an engine out in an oak tree before with a come-along. So that's before I had the money I have now and have the awesome shop I have. But I also learned a lot doing that. So just keep it in mind. Try to do it the right way as best you can, okay? I do want to show y'all one other thing. And I want to explain something to you real quick that has to do with interior pressures of interior temperatures of your car and what you should be expecting to get. So as you can see here in this Scout, kind of a weird deal, is the blower motor I've turned upside down. But down in here, this is the evaporator, okay? This is a piece that I found out they don't even make any longer for this vehicle. So thank goodness we don't have a leak with this. It cools perfect, no problems. But what I specifically want to talk to y'all about is when you're measuring temperatures out of your vents, okay? There's a couple ways to do it. I'm not gonna lie, one of my favorite ways is they make these little AC gauges you can put in there. I've seen them. If they're cheap, buy one. But what I used to do back in the day before we had the internet, I know I'm that old, I actually would use meat thermometers. And so what I would do is hang one in here and you got that round bulb just kind of sticking out, and then you get your temperature. So what are you looking for? Ideally, I like to get about 50 degrees is what I'm looking for coming out of the actual vents. Shoot for 50 degrees. Also, feel free if you're having AC issues especially, go ahead and throw that gauge and measure each vent separately. You may find that one side of the car gives you one temperature and the other side gives you a different temperature. There's several things that can cause that. The last one I worked on, it would blow 70 degrees on one side and it would blow about 51 degrees on the other side. And the reason was it had a bad evaporator. It was leaking. I'm not really sure how the leak caused it to do so well on one side, not the other, but it did a great job on one side. I believe it's because the side that it was escaping from actually gave the 70 degree reading because it was losing its gas. So if you ever smell something funky coming out of your AC, that could be it. Try not to breathe that stuff in. Don't run the AC. It's not good for you. So that pretty much wraps it up. I wanted to show y'all, how you can test stuff. Another thing that you can do with that temperature gauge, I showed you how to do the spots on the condenser. You can also do that on the evaporator if you have the ability. If you have it cracked open like I do, you can shoot different temperatures on here. So this one, it's consistent within about 2 to 3 degrees, which is perfect. That's what you want. So you can also check different valves with your temperature degrees too. What you normally do is you'll shoot it temperature going in, temperature coming out. Gives you an idea of what's going on with it. You don't want to see large temperature differences. But other than that, that's pretty much it. If there's anything specific you guys need to know, this is just kind of basic. I notice a lot of videos cover how to change this, how to vacuum, how to do all that stuff, but they never really tell you how to check this stuff. Some people just go in and they don't know, so they replace everything. That's okay if you got the money to do it. If you're doing it yourself, I'll be honest with you, most of the time I would check stuff, but many times I replaced everything just because I wanted the system like new, and it lasts longer. So, when you're doing that, also decide what kind of compressor you're buying. Are you buying an OEM or are you buying a Chinese-made compressor? They're fine. I've used them. I had a Chinese compressor I ran for 8 years, but they really are hit and miss. You just never know what you're going to get out of them. So really the only problem I've ever had with one is it would blow the clutch up about once every couple years. I felt like the clutch blew up in it, but it wasn't hard for me to change. And to be honest with you, being a mechanic, I didn't care. So, but I don't want any of my customers experiencing that. So food for thought. So anyways, you guys and gals out there, y'all have a great day and stay cool in this hot weather. Hope you learned something. Bye.